Okay, welcome again to another question time. Now you have filled your tummies with delicious food. Now's the time to fill your mind with delicious Dhamma food. But Ajahn Chah said, food for the heart. Very good. Just a quick word of advice on meditation. Sometimes people have asked in the interviews, they say, well, are you supposed to interrupt silence sometimes to give some advice to yourself? And very often it's okay every now and again just to give a little nudge to one's meditation, which means you interrupt the silence ever so softly, just actually to give a bit of advice. Little things like just saying calm, calm, calm. Or just telling yourself just to let go, let go, let go. Or just saying relax, relax, relax. What we really mean there is that it's okay to disturb the silence in a small way, as long as it's with a bit of directed thought. Just to give yourself a bit of a nudge towards peace. Where we say we're not supposed to have any thinking, we're supposed to be still, it means where we go on and on and on and on, yak, 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 yak. That's what we really need to abandon. So we have more silence. But you don't need to have 100% silence in your meditation. Every now and again you can just say a couple of words, just to guide the mind even deeper. Sometime I gave the simile of the taxi driver. The simile of the taxi driver is this. When you finish this retreat, some of you are going to Singapore, I'm going to Penang. Those of you going to Singapore might order a taxi. And you say to the taxi driver, take me to KLIA. And you say, I want to go not too fast, not too slow, just about sort of maybe 90 kilometers an hour, 100 kilometers an hour. Make sure, because I'm a Buddhist, if you see any cars want to come in front of you, please allow them in first, because I'm a Buddhist. Please be compassionate. Don't talk too much. Switch down your radio. And if you keep on talking like that, that taxi driver, before you get out of the gate, will throw you out. He said, look, you sit in the back, I'll do the driving. Now, of course, I think you've got the simile there. All you need to do to the taxi driver, which is your mind, just give it a few little hints of what it wants to, what you need to do. Just like the taxi driver, he knows how to get to the airport. He knows the best way. He knows how to drive. That's his business. So you just tell him, take me to KLIA, and then you sit in the backs and relax and allow the orders to be completed. In the same way, you tell your mind, please watch the breath. And you leave it alone. So the mind has got the time to watch the breath. You don't say, come on mind, watch the breath. I'm waiting, watch the breath. Come on, you better watch the breath. Why aren't you doing what you're told? Watch the breath. Your poor old mind is working. It takes time. So give the instructions, be quiet, shh, and give the mind all the time it needs to complete your task. It is programming the mindfulness, and often the reason why programming the mindfulness doesn't work is because we interrupt and give more instructions when the poor mind hasn't got time to complete the instructions it's already received. So, during the meditation, you can always interrupt the silence a few times, just by programming the mind, just calm, calm, calm. But don't do more than that. You can say, calm, calm, calm. Come on, get calm. Look, I'm telling you, get calm. Calm, you stupid mind. Then no wonder your mind rebels and you never get peaceful at all. Just like the taxi driver, they throw you out of the car. Okay, that's another bit about nudging the meditation. Now we come to the questions. Dear Ajahn, can a layperson, i.e. not a monk or a nun, sometimes monks and nuns are layperson, because you know my definition of lay people? People who lay around. And some monks and nuns are really lazy, so they lay about monks and nuns, so they're really like lay people, because they lay around. Can a layperson achieve enlightenment? This is to be known, each person for themselves. Try, give it a try, and see if you can prove that for yourself. If I tell you, will you believe me? If you believe everything you're told, you're gullible. And if you won't believe me, it's a waste of time me telling you. So the point is, yes, they can become enlightened. But if you become enlightened, it has consequences. There was one of my lay disciples who was practicing in Sri Lanka amongst this tradition. And it was a bit of a strange tradition, but the teacher was telling him he was getting all these stages of enlightenment. It wasn't really true, but he believed it at the time. And so he rang up his wife back in Perth saying, "Oh, the teacher just told me I'm a stream winner." That's really, really good. And his wife was very impressed. A few days later, he said, "The teacher's told me now I'm a once returner." That's really, really good. A few days later, he rang up and said, he was a doctor. He said, "Now I'm a non-returner." And at that, his wife got really upset. He said, "Stop it! Please stop there, come home, work, pay off the mortgage before you become a fully enlightened being. I don't want you to leave the world yet, we've got too many debts." But if you do become an enlightened being, even a non-returner, has consequences. Just naturally, you have to keep the 5 precepts, not because you try, you can't do anything else. Now you are sort of just a noble being, and you act nobly, it's your character. You can't do anything about it, you have to keep precepts. So if you become an anagami, a non-returner, you will not be able to have sex with your husband or with your wife. It has consequences. That's why they say, stop it. Don't go further, they say. You won't be interested in money anymore. You're not interested at all. Because just like that Gatikara, who, I told you that story of Gatikara a few days ago, he was an anagami, he wore white, he was not into jewellery or fashionable clothes. The 8 precepts of like not wearing jewellery or adornments becomes natural. You just can't do it, you can't put on adornments, it doesn't make sense to you. So, that's part of being an anagami. You're not interested in money, he just made his pots, lived so simply, and put his pots on, say, on barter. These are rice if you want, take a pot if you want. But it was not buying and selling. It's very difficult to do business if you're an anagami. In fact, it's impossible. So there's consequences to that. There's this one other lay lady who was an anagami, and she said there was some misunderstanding. The king's troops came to arrest her son. They actually got the wrong person, but they killed the son in front of her. They executed him. She was a non-returner. She said, it was amazing, it was wonderful. Even though that was my son, who I'd brought up for so many years, even though he was innocent, when the king's soldiers executed him in front of me, I never felt any remorse, any anger, anything at all. I was so peaceful. He said, that's called detachment. That's what happens when you're an anagami. It's not your son anymore. It's just a being you look after. There's no attachment, no me, no mine. So it's powerful. This is actually how you can recognize who is an anagami non-returner, who is an arahat. If you see that somebody, like there's a monk, and his mother dies or his father dies and he gets all upset, he's obviously not understood the Dhamma. They're not really the enlightened one yet. So there's consequences to enlightenment. But of course the major consequence is you're happy, you're peaceful, no more suffering. So you can become an enlightened person, but do you really want to? Do you want to give up your music and all your food and all your nice little things, your nice little treats? After a while you say, yes, I do. So yes, you can. The doors of the deathless are open even to you. I'll talk about enlightenment more tonight. Ajahn, you mentioned that meditation is good karma. What if the meditation state is not great and merely struggling at watching the breath? Does it still contribute to good karma? Is the karma measured by the state of one's meditation sitting? Thank you and sadhu. Now you probably heard this teaching before, that karma is intention. That's the most important thing about karma. So if you have the intention to actually to say give a donation to the temple, but somehow or other it just disappears, someone robs the donation box. Actually I haven't seen where all those angpaos have gone. But it doesn't matter, because you've had the good intention, and so it's always you've got the merit already. It's the same when you're sitting. You've got the good intention to watch the breath. But where's the breath gone? I don't know, someone's taken it. Just like the young powers, who cares? But they haven't really stolen it. They've taken it away to change it into Australian dollars, and then they can send a cheque. I told you, the cheque's in the mail. So you have made good karma, just your intention of meditating, like your intention of giving dana. That is most important. So you made good karma just by your intention to sit on this cushion. Whether you achieve it or not, that adds to the good karma, but you've already made huge good karma already. Just by your intention to try and watch the breath, to try and let go. So you're already way ahead. You don't lose anything. That's why I said there's no such thing as a bad meditation. There's only no meditation. That's bad. You don't even bother to sit down. If you sit down, you walk, that by itself already is huge good karma. So well done. You've all made lots and lots and lots of good karma. Dear Ajahn, apart from Malaysia and Singapore, what other countries do you spread the Dhamma? It is believed that the West is pumping millions into third world countries, e.g. Mongolia, to Christian organizations. Are Buddhists too complacent? There is so much to be done. Thank you with metta. I am teaching in many countries. I teach in United States, in Europe, in Czechoslovakia, in Alaska, even in Africa. Via the internet. It's a wonderful tool. I can just sit in my monastery and give a talk. And you give one talk, it goes all over the world. Isn't that marvellous? And it's marvellous to do this. We don't need to pump millions into building big monasteries and big churches. Or meditation centres are accepted. And I just thought about that once I started. I thought, you better stop. But sometimes I've seen this, especially in Thailand. There's these huge monasteries and temples and no one goes in there. Just like these huge churches in the West. They're empty. What's the use of a big temple when there's nobody actually goes inside of it? So it's important. One of my sayings, which I always keep in mind as being an abbot of a monastery, people are more important than things. So it's not the temple that's important, it's the people who go inside of it. In fact, that was the original meaning of the word church. A church in the English language was never a building. It was a people, it was a community. That's what the church actually meant. Not the bricks and mortar and the steeple and whatever. It was the people. So to build churches in the ancient times was to build communities. And this is actually so important to remember that, because sometimes we forget, what the big building is there for. It's not there to say just how great our organization is. It's there to serve the needs of the people. The people are the first. They're the church. It's when my monastery in Serpentine was first built. Visitors would come, Australians, and they'd say, "Where's your monastery?" "What do you mean? It's here." I said, "No, where's the monastery? Where's the building?" they were asking for. I said, "Look, a monastery is not a building. A monastery is the people who live here. That's what a monastery is. People." So you may spend millions and millions building these huge temples or these huge cathedrals and churches, but that is not spreading religion. It's important, it's the people which count. And the best way, and people realize that, and the best way of doing that is actually putting money into doing things like spreading the Dhamma, like printing books and stuff like that, putting on the internet. Because in the future, people won't have time to go to the churches. They won't have time to come to the temples. So you take the temple into people's homes. You take the church into their homes. In modern technology, we're already starting some video streaming in Perth. We've tried a couple of experiments. We haven't got to tweak the system soon. Soon you'll be able to see Ajahn Brahm or the monks in Perth just live on the net. So when it's a Friday night talk there, you'll be able to see it in Malaysia, either live or later on in the evening when you're free. Doesn't that make so much sense? So it means when I come to, say, Malaysia, you can also put it on the internet, so my disciples in Perth can see me. And so all over the world we have this great temple called the Cyber Temple. So it's on the internet. So you don't need to spend millions on these big halls. Already this is actually our solution in Perth, because those of you who've been to our monasteries in Perth, we've got 2 monasteries. That's one for the women, the nuns' monastery, and one for the monks. It's completely separate, independent. And we have our city centre close to the CBD. That's where we're supposed to do all the teaching. And of course, as soon as you build a hall, it's never big enough. You'd always people cram in there. It's crowded every Friday evening. You don't have to advertise. In fact, we are very scared of advertising, because we did that with a small group in the south, and as soon as you advertise, they had to literally stop people coming in. 5 minutes before the talk, they had to close the doors because of fire restrictions. You can't have too many people in the hall. You may know, for those of you in Singapore, I've been banned from teaching in Taipei Buddhist Centre on Lavender Road. The reason is that I gave some talks there, and so many people came in, they couldn't keep them out, and they're afraid they were breaking the fire regulation laws. So they're scared of having Ajahn Brahm come to their temple now. It's not that I teach wrong things, it's I get too many people. And that's happening in Perth as well. So, the solution, we had 2 solutions. Let's raise a lot of money, a couple of millions, and build this big hall. I said, no, don't do that. Isn't it much better to put a couple of thousand, that's all, not a couple of million, a couple of thousand, into upgrading the internet provider services? So that way, you can actually don't need a big hall, because everybody's got a temple on their computer screen. Soon it'll be on their TV, interactive TVs. So if an evening, you'd have a choice. You can either watch some movie, or you can watch Ajahn Brahm, latest talk from Perth. And that's what will happen. So that's obviously the sign of things to come. So that's actually how we can actually build new things. So we're not complacent. So we do actually pump millions into countries, but over the internet. I think it's not just power, it's like wisdom. Sometimes very strong people always lose. It's the wise people are the ones who win. And there's a lot of very wise, compassionate Buddhists around. They don't do things in the old ways sometimes, they do things in the new ways. And that's why, sure, that Christian organizations are very wealthy, but they're not making much headway, certainly in the West. The Christian organizations are losing converts in Western countries. They're gaining in places like Australia. I read in the newspaper, it was about 2-3 years ago, when they got all the census from the European Union in Europe. It was the first time in, 1800 years that now there was less than 50% of Europeans, less, were Christians. So it's mostly a non-Christian organization, Europe. Now the heart of Christianity is now turned away from Christianity, which is why in the European Union, when they started their constitution, despite all of the power and the influence of the Pope, they would not put a reference to Christianity in the preamble of the European Union Constitution. So it's actually going away. So it's good to support your temples, it's good to give your donations, it's good to support, but put your support in the right way. So it's giving teachings is the best way to support Buddhism. Dear Ajahn, please forgive me as I have to ask this question to clear my doubts. It is said, Dhamma is free. If it's so, why is the book Opening the Door of Your Heart is on sale? I'm going to change the title of the book. Instead of Opening the Door of Your Heart, Open the Door of Your Wallet. By doing so, they consider those who might not be able to afford, but yet are interested to read this book. How would this affect the religion? If it is for donation, I'm sure there are other ways to raise funds. Please clarify. Okay. The reason why that was put as a book for sale is because we've experimented with for many years having books for free distribution, and where do they end up? They end up in the temples. They go no further. Sometimes there was many books we did for free distribution, like Ajahn Chah's books. People would write, where can we get a copy? And we'd actually run out. There wasn't actually the right distribution of the book. And only those